You know, a phrase that I'm absolutely sick of people saying over and over and over: Byron, you're doing so much. You're doing so much. I know that you have a busy life. You're doing a lot. I think there was one time where I thought doing a lot meant that I was effective as a person. And now I realize that doing a lot just means that I'm spread so thin that I'm actually ineffective in a lot of different places. My name is Byron. I'm a church planter and a pastor, an overall creative. I own a business. I run a few different facilities, and I also am just a pastor, father, husband, and friend, hopefully. But I do have a podcast, and that is this podcast called Tell the Story Doc. Tell the Story Doc is a podcast that basically tells the story of church planting and church planters as it's actually happening. So this particular episode is about being busy. This past Sunday, I preached on idols. If you're watching this, you already know what idols are. And it's actually very interesting that I preached on idols in the same weekend that Timothy Keller died. I think Tim Keller has given me the most knowledge that I have received about idolatry, especially his book, Counterfeit Gods. I love that book. But the idea that anything that you love and put all of your hope in, that is likely your idol. And one of the things that is an idol for a lot of people, especially in our generation, is work. It's this idea that you can give yourself over to your work, and it's going to pay out in some particular fashion that's going to give you the life that you actually dream about. And as I was breaking down idolatry in the sermon, that is how I kind of framed it. Is idolatry happens in three phases: the creation phase, which usually happens here, it's our dreams, and then the crafting stage, and then the connection stage. So the creation stage is us taking our desires and imagination and creating the life that we actually want. Then we craft an idol. We craft something that we can put our hope in that'll actually get us there. And we say it's God, especially for pastors, we say it's God. We say it's our faith in Jesus, but most of the time it's our hard work. It's our personalities. It's our giftings. It's our ability to create things. It's our ability to start new things. And then there's a connection phase where you have to craft a story, or you create a story, or you develop a story. Maybe that's a better way, since there's already two C's there. You develop a story about how the narrative behind your idol is intricately important or immensely important to your personal story. Which, if you've been listening, I mean, you already know that that's the reverse of the gospel, right? Like, the gospel is God creating us, right? And as he creates us in his image. So we don't have to have another image to look for. He creates us in his image. He crafts us, right? And then he connects us to Jesus, because we are ineffective and insufficient in being able to live this life well without God himself. So Jesus is the bridge builder to all of that, right? So as I'm breaking this down in the sermon, I'm also dealing with the fact that I have my own idols. And one of my idols is not work, but it's busyness. It's not work, but it's busyness. If I had to rate how effective I am as a worker, I would say I'm not that effective. I am the person who would write his name down on every page on a volunteer list, but I'm not the person who's going to knock it out of the park. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and we were just talking about the season of life that I'm in, and how I feel like I am falling victim to that idea of multitasking. Multitasking is a myth, because what you'll end up doing is doing a lot of things subpar. You won't do hardly anything great. And admittedly, and maybe confessionally, that's where I am in my life. I feel like I'm just getting by in being a father, just getting by in being a husband, just getting by in being a friend, a family member, just getting by in my place of employment, just getting by in my businesses. just getting by as a pastor. And that frustrates me. It aggravates me because I've never gotten into this to just get by. Matter of fact, I really did not have a desire to be a pastor. It was God's calling that gave me the desire to be a pastor. And I wake up so often wondering if I am doing a disservice to that calling by being busy. Now, the reason why I'm busy is because I don't have a lot of money. I do not have a lot of money. And if you're a church planter, and you are blessed to be funded or fully funded, or you could take a salary from a church, God bless you. I think that is amazing. Right now, I am far from that. I'm not able to take a salary, or at least a full-time salary from our church. So I work full-time job, but the full-time job doesn't really give us enough either. So I also try to operate my businesses. So I own a marketing and creative agency. I also run this space, which is called The Connect, and I use those things to kind of bridge the gap. And recently, my family and I were on the road. We were talking, and I was frustrated because I'm doing a lot, and I have so much talent that would make me able to be successful in all of these different places, but I'm not able to give myself completely to any place. So I'm failing at every place in my judgment. And by people wanting to be gracious, like they tell me like, oh man, we know you got a lot going on, but at the end of the day, like you don't get those excuses forever. Why am I making this? I'm making this really just to reflect on my own busyness, and to say that like busyness does not make you effective. Busyness does not make you important. And oftentimes busyness can be a distraction from us giving our complete selves to the one thing that we know that we're called to do, or maybe the few things that we know that we're called to do. I remember a mentor of mine told me when I first started in the church planting journey, he said, pick three things. Pick three things that you believe that you can do really well, whether that's preaching, praying, and counseling, whether that is vision casting, teaching, and discipleship, whatever those three things are, pick those three things and only do those three things for the first 3 to 5 years of the church plant. He would even go on to say, as your church, like your church should only have three things, like the Sunday morning experience, maybe a Bible study, and an outreach project. Like pick three things that you can knock it out the park in, and then expand to the other things. But what does Byron do? He picks the hardest route every single time. That's why we're planting in a low-income neighborhood in a mid-sized city with no major backing. Although shout out to Creek Collective and shout out to Harbor Network, because you all have been just immensely supportive over the time. But all of those things are limited. So I have felt like I've picked the hardest thing to do, and I've spread myself in so many different directions that I have not been able to be effective in a lot of areas. To jump back to the conversation with my family and I said to my family, like, if I had to pick one thing that I could do, maybe three, but let's say one out of all of the vocational things that I do, I really just want to be a pastor. Like, I really just want to like pastor people. Honestly, like if I could spend all of my time pastoring people, I would be okay. And yes, I am creative. I love creating things, but if I had to choose producing things and creating things over loving people and preaching God's word, I'd pick that. I'd pick loving people and preaching God's word. Like if I had to pick between my professional educational career and what I'm doing ministerially, I would pick what I'm doing ministerially. And one, I say that with no boasting. I'm not trying to like seem holier. I know that it could come off that way. I'm not. Like, I just really enjoy being a pastor. And as much as I did not want to be a pastor when I was initially called, this is the thing that I feel most free in doing. Also, I gotta say this, and this is a minor critique. Like, I'm sorry if I'm stepping on some toes here, but I feel like there's a wave in in some pastoral circles where people are trying to convince everyone that it's okay to be anything but a pastor. Like, they want to say like, hey, be a pastor and do this thing, like be a pastor and do that thing. And who's to say a pastor can't do this or start this or act this way or be a part of these things? Look, I have no problem with people saying that. And I have no problem with people passionately pursuing the things that they feel like God has called them to. But I also just feel like there should be some voices out there saying, hey, it's okay to just only want to be a pastor. Like, that's okay. Like, it's okay to want to pastor people for long periods of time, to pursue that as your full-time thing, to have other things on the side, but understanding that this could be your main thing, or this should be your main thing for many people. You know, even as I say that, I mean, I say it a little bit of tongue in cheek because I realize that it might just be my bias. It might just be the fact that it's something that I desire that I do not see a path to just yet. And maybe I'm creating an idol out of ministry or the ideal of ministry to get me to the place that I think would be the best. But I'm hoping and praying that my trust isn't in an idol, that my trust is really in God. And if so, I will continue to grind it out. I'll continue to work as many jobs as I have to. I'll continue to try to do my best in every single area. I'll continue to trust God with everything He's placed in my lap. But I also continue to believe that if it is His will, that I'll be able to pursue a path of only working in ministry and not having to work in other places. Unless I want to, or unless He opens doors to. If you're a church planter or a pastor and you are thinking about what the next 4 to 5 years of your life will look like, and maybe you're on support or something like that, and you truly do enjoy pastoring people, man, do something that I neglected to do. Like, go firm up your support base, communicate with them well, get to a place where you know that you don't have to think about working other jobs and other things, because that just brings a lot of stress. And it's easier to just be in a place where you are supported by other people who can help you serve in ministry as the gospel is going forth in whatever city or place that you're in. Like, do the work now. Do the hard work now of creating a support base that would allow for you to extend your hand in ministry as God is moving on your city. If you're not that person and you're just grinding it out, find your escape plan. I'm forming mine right now. I'm trying to figure out what my escape plan is, because I do believe that God will give me an opportunity to work in ministry full time. But either way, continue to believe God. Believe God. And I'm preaching to the choir right now. Byron, believe God that you can actually do these things and do them well to God's glory and honor until you get to the next thing. Last thing I'll say is yesterday in my sermon, I talked about what worship is. And I said, worshiping God is what you do and what you say while you're waiting on God. And I'm waiting on God. So I pray that everything I'm doing right now can be an act of worship to Him, because I do believe in what He can do in our lives. Thank you for listening to this rant. I know it was pretty random. I hope it blessed somebody. I hope that you got a better understanding of my life and my journey, or my story. And I pray that this might be something that could impact your story, even if it's not. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Don't leave before you subscribe. Hit the like button. And also, if you could follow some of the pages and the links that you see below, that would bless me tremendously. Oh, lastly, I do have a lot of jobs and I do have a lot of things going on. All of those things are in the description as well. But the first link that you will see will be to our website, identitydaytona.org. If you'd like to give and maybe help out with the burden of us being a support-based church at this moment, one that's not fully self-sufficient at this moment, I'd love for you to click that giving link. And if you are moved by the Lord to give, I'd love for you to give. God bless you. I love you, and continue to tell the story.